Ready. All right. Welcome, everyone. We're live with another Me First story. We're really excited about this series of stories coming from the Turtle Tank community of radical creators, entrepreneurs, and leaders who are going to be sharing really about the experience of learning how to realign with themselves and what matters most to them, what they value, what their purpose is, and really sharing like the full story, not just the breakthroughs on the other side of that, but the challenges along the way. So we're really excited for this series, and especially today we have Samia Abou-Samra, one of the co-founders of Turtle Tank, here with us. So this story series is really an evolution for us. When we first started Turtle Tank 2 years ago, we were focused on working with radical entrepreneurs, healers, artists, activists, organizers, educators, coaches, consultants who have this radical vision for the world and want their work to be a contribution to that. And so in doing that work, people came to us because they're like, I came because I wanted to work on my business. I wanted to work on my project. And actually the information like changed my whole life. So we heard that. And now we've expanded the scope of our work to not just include entrepreneurs, but to include the whole range of radical people in our community who are creators, who are leaders, who are out there committed to creating a world that's really based and rooted in love and freedom. So welcome to this series and welcome to the day. I want to start with an introduction of you, Samia. I'm going to start with reading your bio, and then I'm going to add in my insider knowledge to just give people a sense of who you are and why they should really pay attention to this live. So Samia Abou-Samra is a co-founder and CEO of Turtle Tank. Samia is an artist and a radical entrepreneur. Samia is the founder and owner of Whale Wonder, a creative play space that grows radical systems for a more human world, and which was actually the home and the original incubator for Turtle Tank. Samia serves as a strategist, consultant, educator, and creative director for radical entrepreneurs who include makers, healers, artists, activists, and educators who are dedicated to love and freedom. Samia enjoys all aspects of the creative process, particularly in the areas of music and media, entrepreneurship, indigenous knowledge, and radical health. Samia has a BA in Comparative Studies in Race and Ethnicity with a focus on ritual, medicine, and performance from Stanford University, as well as an MBA in Environmental and Social Management from Antioch University of New England. So Samia, one of the many things that I love about you and I appreciate is just your gift and ability to really just see people really deeply and to ask the hard questions that make them uncomfortable. But if they're willing to sit with that discomfort, really come to these life-changing insights. And you do it so easily. And I know you do it at great risk because some of the questions you ask, I mean, even make me mad. And people like have strong reactions to them. And so I know what it takes for you to be you and for you to see the truth in people, see the truth in situations, and then actually articulate it, be honest enough to articulate it, and withstand whatever kind of feedback or reaction you get. And I think the people who are willing to sit with you in the discomfort are always blessed and grateful for you being who you are. So thank you for being here.
Oh,
and yeah.
That was really specific. Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to start with something that you and I have talked about a lot in our personal conversations about death.
Yeah.
And you've talked about how there are two ways to die. So could you elaborate on that, what you mean, and how that connects to this idea of practicing me first?
Yeah, that's a really big question. And thank you for asking, for being so precise with this. Even how you described me, I was like, wow, that's very, very accurate. Thank you for seeing me. Wow, two ways to die. I do talk a lot about that. I we live at the precipice of kind of death and rebirth when we're working with the process of transformation. And you and I both do that. And you know, I guess I'll name the two ways. You know, so one is, you know, we exit out of this plane, this world, and the other is, you know, the kind of moving into a new self, you know, or a more integrated self. Mm. And there's no value judgment on either of those choices. And as we know historically, at times, you know, one of those choices is more, you know, the more appropriate choice. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, when we have the option to make the choice of integrating, that should be the choice that we make. Sometimes we don't. Mm-hmm. So I'm very conscious of that in my life, you know, in the lives of the people that I've lost, in the lives of people who live in conditions that require us to exit out in certain ways. And I take the privilege, the honor of being alive very seriously. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, my work, maybe right now, at least, and I don't know later, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing later, but right now, my work is in the transformation realm, you know, and I've been at that juncture, like I said myself, with, you know, questioning whether this world is a place for me, that, you know, is a place where I can exist in my wholeness and in my fullness. And that, you know, we talked a little bit about this in your call yesterday, and if anyone hasn't watched that yet, you should go back. If you're watching today, you should go back and watch EJ's, because this campaign, this Me First campaign, is EJ's, you know, soul child. It came out of her soul. I didn't get the same brainchild as soul child. And you know, we touched on this a little bit, but, you know, yeah, so I'm thinking about the ways in which, you know, I at this particular lifetime for me, I cannot be erased. Mm. And it's so life and death for me, that erasure, the choices that I made, the reason why I live here, you know, all of that stuff, you know, is because I have to be in the fullness of who I am. Mm-hmm. You know, and not be ashamed of that. And, you know, so whenever I get to those junctures, I'm like, okay, which one am I gonna do this time? You know? And I think a lot of us who are leaders, who are, you know, creators, who are artists, who are healers, whatever, know that place. Mm-hmm. Very, you know. Mm-hmm. And so it's also a creative juncture. You know? So yeah, those are the two ways, you know, and I'm interested in, you know, in bringing people into more of who they are. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm really hearing and what you're saying is, one, the recognition of the truth that we live in a world that is systematically designed for us who are from marginalized communities to choose the dying out, right? Once we're no longer useful to the system. And this choice to integrate in the face of that kind of like pressure and dismissal and violence is a radical act. Mm-hmm. And an act of resistance. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Great. Well, I think like really connected to that is your commitment to purpose. And that's been a central theme of your work for years. And, you know, in mainstream culture, purpose is talked about in this very individualistic, like you're on a quest on a hero's journey to go out and find your purpose and then, like, you know, slay all the dragons and achieve it. And you define purpose from a more indigenous lens. So I was hoping that you would be able to describe your perspective on purpose, and you know how this connects to creating a world that's rooted in love and freedom.
That's a great question. Wow. So I've been obsessed with purpose since I can remember. You know, I think I was born feeling like I had a purpose. You know, from a very young age, I just felt like I was here to do something. You know, and I know most of us should feel that way because we're all here to do something. You know, and the impact doesn't have to be qualitative. Quantitative, excuse me. It's qualitative. So we are all here. We're here to fulfill something, to learn something, to, you know, evolve in some way. And so I always had this very strong sense of like, I'm here to do something. I'm here to do something. I always felt that. And so I was so drawn to, you know, the study of myself and what, you know, who I am, how I'm made, what I'm supposed to do with that, you know, I guess one of the challenges for me is that I was so kind of malleable in terms of like being able to apply my skills in different spaces. And so it was always a struggle for me to really tap into my desire, you know, and there are ways in which I maybe didn't, you know, but I always could feel my like desire, just always like at those kind of junctures that we just talked about, just like, oh, cracking out and be like, okay, I'm a little bit more of myself, you know. And so in my later years, I remember like knowing in my soul that I needed to go to California. I just know these things. I'm like, oh, I need to do this right now. And just like this deep, deep knowing, you know. And so the concept of purpose was very important to me. And so then I started to study, you know, more about purpose in all these different contexts, and particularly in what is Afro-Indigenous context, you know, African context, and also other, and we use the word indigenous here across the board for, you know, not just talking about a particular group of people, but anyone that's practicing indigenous consciousness, right? And so what I realized as I was doing this work and doing all sorts of other work with people as a strategist and all that is that, you know, at the core, everything in those cultural contexts is designed around reminding us of that which you called your divine assignment. Every single thing that you do is about that, right? Every ritual and every medicine and it's about bringing you back to that. And when we're out of alignment with that is when we start to deal with the chaos of things that we don't need to be dealing with, you know? And so to me, purpose is what we call in Turtle Tank, we say that is the fundamental organizing principle of our world, right? So when we're in alignment with that and walking with that, then we fit in the whole in the best way that we can, the most effective and efficient way that we can, and beautiful way, and fulfilling way, and powerful way that we can. And so when we're talking about love and freedom, I think the way we get there is through this thorough alignment or consistent realignment, because that's what it takes. And we talk about purpose, you know, again, you said this earlier, EJ, that it's not this thing we find and, you know, we're like, I found my purpose, so let me live it out. Just like you said, freedom was a practice yesterday, you know, so is purpose. Practice. And in fact, the way the exercises that we do at Turtle Tank and the tool that we use at Turtle Tank is this ever emerging, ever evolving reflection on self. And we actually do it at different times and do it in different ways. And you're basically coming into more and more focus as you mature, you know, in your years. And then, you know, on your deathbed, you look back, you go, I did that. That's my purpose. And now you're gone. You know what I mean? And so purpose is something that you are constantly, you know, walking into more and more deeply. And that's the point. Otherwise, why are we here? Mm-hmm. We already know exactly every single step that we're doing. Like we're being asked to find those steps at every step of the way by being in ourselves so deeply. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, and once we do that, we can organize from a place that's, you know, that's from that raw, creative, wild, unpredictable place, you know, that where we're not being managed and told what to do, but we're working in this kind of collective resonance with each other around something that's emerging from inside all of us together as an individual into a whole that's co-creating with the mystery. Mm-hmm. So when we try to, I think our systems are built on management. You know, we're trying to manage everybody. Oh, we're all gonna do this. Let's do it like this, right? And there's a difference between management and strategy, right? Strategy, I think, can work with the emerging purpose of all people. Mm-hmm. Management is someone thinks that they know better. That's control, right? And we talk about the difference between power and control. I mean, maybe you're going to ask me that question. You know, I talk about it so much. Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between power and control. Mm-hmm. And control is, you know, born out of the fear of our needs not being able to be met. And so we have to control our environment to have that happen. And sometimes the way we organize is like that too. Sometimes the way we run businesses is like that. Sometimes, you know, but power, you know, doesn't require, it comes from a place of love. It doesn't require that you control because you draw things into you that are for you, you know, and just purely by being in your purpose, you're in the right place at the right time with the right people, and there is no need to control anybody. Mm-hmm. Just do what they're meant to do. Mm-hmm. Stick together in this really nice place. It's more easily said than done, obviously, you know, because it is a practice of being in our full, coming back into our full truth again and again and again, which is incredibly hard. Yeah, you know, because that. However, I think it's that work is much more, is much easier than controlling. It's much less demanding than controlling other people. It takes so much work to try to control our environment, every little detail around it. It's actually so much easier to sit in who we are and work that stuff out. Is the only people we have control over is ourselves, or power in, let me say, is ourselves. Mm. So when we sit in that, we don't have to control anything, right? And we can work from that place. And so, and it's actually a lot, and it's given me so much peace. Yeah. You know, because, you know, even when we're really well-meaning people, we try to control. It's not a bad thing. You know, we struggle with it. We all struggle with that. And when we relax and surrender into what we need, what we're supposed to, which is, again, let's bring that back to me first, right? When we rest into me first, all of a sudden the places where you think you had all this chaos and where you felt like you needed to control kind of dissolve, you know, and we're able to then just be. Yeah. And things just start flowing again and things start working for us. Yeah. You know, and I think that's really important. So purpose is that for me. Like, so alignment with purpose allows us to come back into ourselves again and again so that we can be in power and not in control. Yeah. And surrender. Yeah, exactly. To Kaylee, you know, peace, relaxing, and surrender. Exactly. Yeah. I realized that's what I was able to go to bed at night eventually, you know, because when I first started doing this work, I was like, you know, and when you know, we talked about this earlier, when I put my head on the pillow, I asked, you know, did I come back to purpose today? Yeah. You know, and the places where I have struggled are the places where I was trying to work with control and then have to kind of surrender back. Yeah. You know, and so that's it. And so that first, and the relationship to me first and purpose is, is really apparent here.
Yeah. And I think, what's really powerful about what you were saying is, I'm glad you brought in the piece about like power and control, because like this question of like surrendering into and trusting into ourselves and our purpose and our desires, like that's kind of, that surrender is like what Me First is about.
Yeah.
And, understanding why, given everything we've talked about, right? Like recognizing the real threat that we are to the system when we do that, already in a system that's already devalues us, is attacking us, and so it's like, it's no wonder that surrendering into our purpose feels challenging and risky. And I think one thing that's really anchored me, and it's kind of the foundation of the stuff we do at Turtle Tank, is going back to the ultimate teacher, who to me is nature, right? Mm-hmm. And so this idea of in nature, it's like form follows function. Mm-hmm. So every structure in nature is organized around their purpose,
right?
Or their function. And then, the structures form around them. And that's what we base our work on. And so being able to like look at nature and like trust that, and then realize like, oh, when I'm sinking into my purpose, then the world can form around me, is what allowed me to like step into that dance and kind of let go of the control. Mm-hmm. So yes, I appreciate you making all those connections for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, one of the things that I've had the privilege of witnessing over the last 3 years is your journey, like your exploration and deeper engagement into this question of practicing putting yourself first, practicing like aligning with your purpose first, And I'm curious. I know that there have been lots of lessons that have come to you from that practice. But if you just had to share one lesson, one insight that was really powerful for you, what would that be?
I don't know why I get so emotional with that question.
Yeah.
The biggest lesson for me is, the more I'm in my truth and in my purpose, the more I'm loved. Mm. And it's kind of like just touching on what we started with, the whole like the 2 ways to die. Mm-hmm. I think what we worry about is that when we walk into our truth, that we'll lose everything and we'll lose what we need to live, Yeah. This is really emotional because
it's understandable, because it's like there's a lot of risks that we take with practicing putting ourselves first, right? For me personally, I was sharing yesterday, like I felt like if I put myself first, I would be alone. Mm-hmm. No one would love me. No one would want me. Mm-hmm. I'd be rejected, And when you first start practicing Me First, people are upset, they're kind of like, wait, no, that's not what I wanted. Like, that's not how it's been. Like, it's always all been about me, What are you doing thinking about yourself, So people have they have some like reactions that you can get over, but some people actually get more violent or more angry, So there is risk involved, and it is scary.
It is.
And so yeah, it's understandable that it's been an emotional process and journey for you.
Exactly. And even to your point, I think that in certain spaces, that choice is life or death. Mm-hmm. And so how you're negotiating that, those choices. And for me, it's like, well, I remember like this one time where my mother, was like, you're going to walk out the house looking like this? I had my big hair and like my, boy clothes and, she's like, someone's going to kill you. Someone's going to hurt you. Mm. And I said, Mom, if I don't do that, I'm already dead. Mm. And so for me, that's always been the line, and then being, the choices. And so I think, part of the issue is that what we don't realize, and we touched on this a little bit, and we talk about this in Turtle Tank all the time, is, when you get clear, don't think that 2 minutes later, your whole world's going to be okay. When you get clear about your truth and who you are, right after that, we talk about shed release. There's a whole shed release process. And so that's the chaos of, that comes right after clarity to bring in the new world that you want. So yeah, you come into clarity, and then people often get scared of that. Well, they're like, oh my God, I made all this mistake, everything's falling apart, all of that stuff, But if we can remember that there's a shedding that needs to happen, and that happened to me, I had that moment where I walked out, and I remember, Sharon Bridgeforth and I talked about this, the dark night of the soul, and she was there with me at that moment, I was like, oh, I'm gonna walk out of this, walk out of my, and into my truth, in this different way. And every time, and it's not a one-time thing, it just happens again and again, and some of us do it more than others, and we're like, oh my goodness, this chaos, But if you can sit through, and stand in the eye of the storm in that chaos, what emerges is what we call transform, create. That's where the new world. And so that I witnessed that moment of, those crashing waves, before you get to calm waters, in the ocean, so you're like, oh, but if you know how to navigate that, and the more we do it, the more we learn how to do that, and obviously you don't know everything, and you're always gonna, there's always challenge, but remembering that chaos doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just means there's all sorts of stuff that has to fall off, and hey, godmother, to say hey. I'm just looking at the comments, I'm so in myself. But yeah, so there's a chaos that ensues when we make those decisions. Like you said, people freak out, there's like, people's demons freak out, everybody's stuff comes out, your demons freak out, everybody else, is trying to like, no, the truth is here, and so there's something that happens with that. And so if we can remember that there is a moment of discomfort, and not confuse discomfort with I made the wrong choice, I did the wrong thing. And so that's the trick, and so when you get into that moment, and the clarity comes in the place of absolute and complete peace. In your guttest of guts that this is the truth. If you're like, I don't know, like that's not the truth yet, but in your guttest of guts, that's in the silence of your, self, that is the truth, then things start to, kind of, that chaos starts to kind of come on, so yeah, and I realize, I see that with my clients, and when I learned that, I say, to step out of being between my clients and their demons, when that happens, my work became so much easier. Because in that moment, in that dark night of the soul, you're alone, and you got to deal with that stuff, and there is nobody, you have your, your, if you believe in other things, other stuff going on, but you're on your own. You got to do it. You got to get through it. You got to get out of it, and that's that me first again. It's that me first moment. Like, okay, it's me here, me first, I gotta deal with this, Yeah.
I think what you're saying, I love that reminder that it's not about us being alone, because we're always supported. Like there's always help available to us if we're connected to it and reach out to it. But it's this idea of like, there's a choice that only we can make.
Exactly.
Right? That personal responsibility to be like, no, me first. No, this is my purpose. No, this is what I'm being called to do. And that's a choice only us can make.
Absolutely.
Right? And recognizing with this idea of knowing that my purpose isn't just like mine alone. It's not about like my personal hero's journey, but recognizing like, oh, my purpose is connected to the community, the people that I love, right? The world that I want to help create. Like me making this personal choice to align and believe in my purpose and my value is the biggest contribution I can make to the collective.
Right.
And it's a choice only I can make.
Absolutely.
Right? But then once you make it, then you're actually opening the floodgates to receive the support that you need to move through it.
Exactly. Thank you for re-articulating that clearly about what I meant. The aloneness is that it's you facing yourself. You're the only person that no one is going to face you for yourself. No one is going to deal with your demons but you.
Yeah.
You go to any healer and take any herb and do whatever you want. At the end of the day, it's you and yourself. And in the darkness of the night, and then you have to see who you are, and you have to emerge from that. And you can have we have all the ecosystems. Actually, we don't have. We're recreating, and we have systems that we can tap into for that. On the larger cultural space, unfortunately, not everyone has access to those things. But that's part of what we're rebuilding. And it's part of what we talk about with Turtle Tank. It's part of what certain cultural spaces are about. Rebuilding those systems and those containers where we can go through that process safely.
Yes.
And that's there are elders and there are healers that are doing this work, but it's not always accessible and available to people, and that's another place where we lose people that exit out the other way. Exit out this way, and so I see those spaces as matters of life and death. Especially for marginalized folks, especially, the more marginalized you are, the more that's needed.
Yeah, and I mean, especially because of the full cycle that you talk about, where it's not just like, oh, I discovered my purpose, okay, let me go do it. It's recognizing, oh, I discovered my purpose. Oh, wait, there's all this stuff I need to like grieve and feel and like shed, and it's uncomfortable. And that can be a journey that people can resist and push away and want to avoid when they're not in community, right? Because we're in the social media world where all you see is the pretty picture. Everyone just sees the end of the journey, and they're like, ooh, look at me, I'm such a mess, I'm such a loser, look how amazing they are. And so being able to be in community and kind of hear people's full true story, and see, and for you, like the benefit, and for me of like Turtle Tank is that we're in this community where we get to see like, oh, there's not just one way to move through this. They're like multiplicity of ways, and each person has their own unique way of navigating this,
right? Which
is what you said, like allows you to just surrender and be like, okay, I'm not going to prevent you from like engaging with your demons. Let them come out and play, because I know that's part of the process and I trust that.
Yeah.
And so yes, I think that's the beauty of like that connection between, okay, this is a personal choice that I need to make on my own, and being in community actually helps me to surrender and trust that, because I see other people's journeys and I see like all the things they have to navigate, and I see that they still landed at the end, that they actually came and were reborn, and because I think that's also what we fear too, is that we're afraid to surrender because we think that's what's going to kill us. Right. Not knowing that actually not surrendering is what's killing us, Right. And so the power of community of like, oh, maybe we don't have to hit our head against the wall 100 times. Maybe we just do it 5 times and then we learn from the rest and we're like, okay, I'm ready now to surrender, But yeah, I think that's important in what you said about the connection between what's our own personal responsibility to do alone, but then what's also the way that we tap into community that allows us to do that personal work, Right.
Yeah, that's profound. Yeah, thank you, EJ, that was really powerful and beautiful how you framed that. And the container of Turtle Tank has been that, and we're finding how to do that more and more. And I know we notice like a lot of people, we don't know how to deal with that shed release stuff that we talked about.
Yeah.
That's the part that's the hardest. And a lot of times we're just sitting here listening to people cry, over and over and over and over until they get out of that. And sometimes it's for a year, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's what, sometimes it's for 3 years, whatever it takes, whatever it takes to get through that, And so
I look back now on like, I've gone through shed release periods. One lasted 7 years in my life, and I had a lot of shame around it. But then when it came to building Turtle Tank, you would ask me a question, I'd be like, oh, you can do this, and you can try this, and you go here and try this exercise, And I was like, wait, that 7 years was not in vain, because it's all coming together now, And I think that's another important piece to remember in terms of understanding your purpose and, the journey it takes you on. And even though you may not understand like the full journey as you're going through it, looking back, it always makes sense to me,
Absolutely.
like why things happen the way that they did. And that's another thing that gives me the power to surrender now more quickly in the moment. You know, I'm not like, I'm still a tourist. It takes me a while to get there, but I've definitely over the years learned what's on the other side of that surrender.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and then we do question in that moment. You're like, okay, wait, is this really real? Is this happening again? You know, is this really going to take me back to, you know, and there is less and less questioning, but there's always that moment of like the butterflies in your stomach type of moment. And that's actually a good thing. It means you're alive. It means you're here, you know. I want to say something to what you're saying is sometimes, you know, I see this in my personal and spiritual practice also, you know, is sometimes you just got to let somebody experience, even like being off. We talk about purpose, totally being off their purpose, because that's how we find our way back, you know. And so sometimes, you know, some clients or some people who I work with, their process is to dive real deep off where they need to be able to bounce back.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I didn't understand that's how I stand in their way. You know, and I realized just letting that happen and having them come back is so much easier for everybody.
Yeah.
Because the fall is what allows them to realize how where they really need to be.
Yeah.
You don't let people experience their lives that way. You know, and sometimes that's really what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more we practice, even as strategists and coaches, the more we're in our purpose, the more we're in our place of power, the less we have to prove ourselves to our community and to our clients, because I don't need to prove to you how this works.
Yeah.
It works. So you're here or you're not, you know, and that's something we got stuck in the beginning a little bit. And I think part of what we are moving out of with this new iteration of Turtle Tank is we don't have to prove ourselves to anyone. You want to be, we know that what we do works. Do you want to be here or you don't? That doesn't mean there's not room for refinement. It doesn't mean there's not room for feedback. In fact, if you know us and you've been with us for Turtle Tank, you know we change every 3 months. We review and we get feedback and we do all of that. That's part of how we work. However, you know, we're not here to prove ourselves to you. You know, and I think that sometimes that's what people think feedback is, or you know, all of that. So, you know, prove to me that this is worth something. Prove it. I'm paying you money. Prove it to me. No, the proof is in the pudding. You have to trust the process. You have to go through the process with us. You know, I'm not going to prove it to you because you paid me money. You know, that's not how it works. You know, and you have to be willing to do the work for it. You know, I'm not going to do the work for you. That's another assumption that people make. Like someone's going to, you know, someone's going to help you find your purpose in that way. Like, you know, hold my hand and take me to the doorknob and open the door for me. No, that's not my work. Not my work either. And that's the draw of like what happens in those spaces is we're like, oh, take me, you know. So you have to be careful to not become walk into these kind of codependent really relationships where you're not letting people learn and grow and do their stuff and go through their stuff. And the way you introduced me earlier today, I know maybe not everyone was here. You're like, you know, I ask the hard questions that get people really uncomfortable, you know. And part of what I had to learn is I had to sit myself doing that.
Yes.
And be like, no, don't touch me.
Yes.
No, it's not about me. Look at yourself. Like, to turn around. I'm gonna go over here. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Good night. Click. You know. And we also have the space of someone holding you and be like, oh, it's okay, poor baby. You can cry. But that's not my job.
Yeah.
I'm not that. But we play different roles. You know. So knowing, okay, you know, I'm more of a surgeon, you know. I'm not gonna hold you after it happens. But there will be people there to hold you. You know? But the tendency is to project onto the person that asked you that question all of your shit and be like, oh, here you go. You're wrong. You're bad. You know. Or sometimes people go inwards, I'm wrong, I'm bad, everything's wrong with me. Like, so there's all these dynamics that you're negotiating as a coach and a strategist. So you especially have to sit in your power and in your purpose. And, you know, sometimes, you know, those questions come up for me. Sometimes I'm like, am I guiding people to the really wrong place? But you can't if they're in charge. And that's what you're trying to do. You try to get them to be in their purpose and in their power. You know, so there's no way you can misguide somebody if you're in your purpose and all you're doing is helping them walk into their purpose, because you're not guiding them. They're guiding themselves. You're just creating the conditions for them to do that, right? Or helping them create the conditions even to do that, right? And so, like I said, my work became so much easier. I was doing too much work.
Yeah.
That's control.
Yeah.
Also coming back to that power control. Anyway, EJ, I'm gonna stop here. I don't know if you have any other questions for me.
I feel like that's a really powerful place to end. You know, this idea of, you know, we were very clear when we started, like, we're like, okay, we don't want to be like people's strategists for like the rest of their lives and like tell them what to do. Like, we want to teach people to be their own strategists. And like the first step in that is having people understand what their purpose is and how their purpose is speaking to them through their life, and when they're moving away from their purpose and when they're moving towards it, and to be able to like navigate through their life that way, so that they don't have to come up with like a 10-year plan or a 3-year plan or even a 3-month plan. They could just be in the moment, day to day, and be present with themselves and where they are, and then use that information to help them navigate through the world. Exactly. And that's the way that we're saying we're going to create this new world that's rooted in love and freedom, is by that practice of realigning with who you are and why you're here.
Right. And we call that, you know, in Turtle Tank, we call it strategic being. You know, it's the act of, so we don't believe in plans in the conventional sense, let me say. That doesn't mean there isn't vision and there isn't purpose and there isn't a way, you know, that is more efficient, you know, to walk through things. And that's strategy for me. That's why I'm so invested in the idea of strategy. Because it's not as what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as rigid as a plan. You know, I remember watching this clip from Malido Masome talking about, you know, that with regards to ritual, like, you know, plan the ritual with it, but then something's going to happen you don't know. There are all sorts of things that are going to happen. You better be on your feet, being able to kind of negotiate.
I think it's coming back to that idea of like power and control, right? We create plans because we want to control the situation. But when we trust that we're in our power, then we can just allow things to unfold and trust that, okay, I'm going to have the power to respond appropriately and move through this situation. Right.
And so that's not also not to be confused with chaos and absolutely no structure, because there are structures that we put in place, but instead of forcing ourselves into step A, step B, step C, what we do is we create the container, right? And the environment. And we clean ourselves and we get clear with ourselves with the container, the environment, ourselves being clear. Now play in that sandbox, right? That you created with all the elements that are necessary for the transformation, right? And so that's what we're talking about. And that's why what we do strategically is so different than anything else that's out there, because it's rooted in indigenous practices. It's rooted in understanding that you have no control, but you have power. And if you tap into your power and you create the right containers to play with what you need to, you know, to run through the exercises that you need to go through for the transformation, then you got it. You know, and that's strategy for me. You know, and you, EJ, are the one that taught me about the concept of the ecosystem, you know, and, you know, I was just so mind blown by you and how you were talking about this stuff, you know, when we first started working together. And I was like, wait a minute, you're putting words to exactly what I do, you know, how I do it with people, and why, you know, we talk about the concept of radical purpose. It's just a container. It doesn't tell you do A, B, C, and D. There's no blueprint. There is no blueprint. You know, you're just gonna feel your way through. I love how you talk about it. You're in a dark room and you're just feeling your way through, you know. So with Turtle Tank, we start with this anchoring in purpose and understanding how to use that tool to come back to purpose again and again and again. And then we teach you how the environment works so that you can put the right elements in the right place to create the right conditions for transformation. And then you learn how to map, you know, and how to project. And I think when people confuse so you get so good sometimes at reading the signs. That's what you're learning how to do. You're learning how to read the signs to be able to respond, and responsibility, the ability to respond, right, is in being able to listen and hear the sounds, the signs, and the signals, to be able to make the right decisions, right? And then you are able to project out for certain things. Oh, I know how this is may turn out given, the 10 times that I've done this and it's turned out like this. Mm-hmm. Now you can have something that looks more like a plan. That's why larger organizations that have been running for however many years can predict things in a certain way, right? Because they have, they've been doing those things for so long that they have an idea of how it works, and that's, I think how, how I'll say readers and all sorts of people, you can tap into something that's bigger than you, mm-hmm. Where you can project out into certain places or whatever. So anyway, we don't have to get into that. That's a whole other conversation. Right. That's the gist of it, of what we want to teach, how we want to work, and how what radical entrepreneurship is, what our framework is for radical creators, radical makers, radical entrepreneurs, radical leaders, and the continued kind of development of that framework, for us. But yeah, that's it. So,
Well, thank you. I mean, we could talk forever about this, but I just appreciate the gems that you shared and your commitment to purpose, the way you've dedicated your life and your time to this, and just the powerful tool that you've created to help people make those discovery for themselves about why they're here and how to navigate that. So thank you for choosing to be reborn over and over again, despite how challenging it's been. And yeah.
Thank you. And for, all of our turtles and all of the community members and all of my elders and my mentors and my teachers. And one of them is on here, Yanifa Ifalade. So I wanted to also just give a shout out for who are the reason that I'm still staying. Mm-hmm. My parents, my family, my sibling, yeah. And you, EJ, who's been through thick and thin with me from the beginning, mm-hmm. and with this particular part of my journey.
Yeah.
So incredible. So, folks, I'm gonna close. We want you to join us for the rest of our stories. We have more. The turtles have more and more gems to share. Mm-hmm. We're just the co-creators of this container.
Yeah.
The people who have been playing in the container have a whole other perspective and a whole other, in terms of how this work has changed their lives and what they're doing with it and how they're working with it, particularly the people who have been here for 2 years with us. We say, it takes about a 4-year cycle to go through a particular kind of transformation, So I'm excited to have those folks share. We have India coming up, Aurora Levens Morales, who's amazing artist, activist, so.
Yeah, so if you haven't already, go visit www.turtletank.co/mefirst. You can download a schedule add it to your Google Calendar or your iCal. But we'll be back on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, to just share. We're going to have India Harville, who's one of our OTs, original turtles, who's been with us in the tank for 2 years and actually just joined the Turtle Tank team a couple months ago, really share her Me First story and what this work has done for her. And so, so please come back and join us. Thank you so much for being here. We know how precious your time is, and we're grateful that you decided to spend it with us.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, EJ, for your amazing questions and holding space in the best way possible. I'm always learning more and more about that, as much as it's hard for me. So I do it still, but you're just you have a gift with that. So I'm just so grateful for you.
Grateful for you too.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone. Take good care.